Hello everyone and welcome to the scrolling LED text tutorial presented to you by QubaHQ. I'm Kuba Michalski and I'm back. I haven't recorded any tutorials for a while. I had a pretty good reason for that. My computer died. I had to restore 2 hard drives, bring all my projects back from the backups, reinstall all the software, all the plugins. It was an absolute nightmare. As soon as I finished that, a building construction started approximately 10 meters from my studio, rendering it absolutely impossible to work during the daytime. So right now it's 1 AM, that's 1 hour past midnight. I just made myself a large cup of triple espresso and I'm ready to go. If I stop being responsive for a longer while and then you hear snoring, that probably means I have fallen asleep. Well, no, just kidding, I'll edit that part out. So in case you haven't watched it yet, here's the preview video of what we're going to be doing today. Although this video is a little bit misleading because I'm not actually going to show you how to set up this particular scene. Instead, I'll teach you how to develop a preset that allows you to turn any text or graphics into an animated LED display. This building in here is just one of the possible uses for the effect. The whole thing is quite highly customizable and you're gonna have a blast doing it. If the tutorial doesn't run too long, I'll show you how to set up this particular scene, but what we're going to concentrate on is this. Where is it? Result composition. Okay, so this is our preset and basically it accepts an input. In here I have a simple scrolling text. Let me just turn off the guides and maybe those as well, the helpers. I have a simple scrolling text, some dots and a little animated Pac-Man character, and we pipe it through a bunch of compositions applying different effects, ending on the composition called result, which basically turns it into quite nicely customizable LED. Now, where are the effect controls on this window? Right here. As usual with my preset, you have a whole bunch of control. This time only, I'm going to show you how to actually set it up. But for now, let me just quickly show you some of the functions you have. So you can decide how big the pixels will be. I'm calling these dots in here pixels. So if I type in 20, you'll notice that the text becomes pretty much unreadable because the pixels are too big. If I bring it back to 10, it looks quite nice. If I bring it down to, let's say, 5, After Effects will run out of memory. And that's because I'm still using After Effects CS3 for recording these tutorials. I already switched all my workflow to CS5, which is absolutely fantastic. But I just want to make sure that those of you who didn't purchase CS4 or CS5 are not left out in the cold when it comes to downloading the project files and opening them on your version. So okay, we have a pixel size. And we have a pixel type. Right now I'm using circular pixels. You can pipe in as many as you want. I just made 2 for this demo. So the second one is square. And it immediately changes the way the whole thing looks. You can decide how much of the black space there will be between pixels. Right now it's very little. If I bump it to, let's say, 12, the pixels become smaller and the spaces become larger. It starts looking better. You can, of course, choose the color that you want to use. That's pretty straightforward. Decide on the level of posterization. I mean, as you can see right now, we have a bunch of shades of gray, which is not really how typically the LED scrolling text work. So I can bring it back to just black and white, which makes it not so pleasant to read. So I like to stick to 3 or 4 in here, giving it a little bit of anti-aliasing. Actually, 4 looks much better. Then you have a speed control, and I'm gonna talk about that in detail a bit later, but right now basically the whole thing scrolls at 2 pixels, 2 of those pixels per frame. I can switch it to 1 LED pixel per frame, and you can see that it's moving much slower. And finally we have the background opacity. Now, sometimes you may want to actually see the grid. Right now I have it switched off, but you can always bring it back in and see the actual pixels that make up the matrix of that LED screen. Alright, so this is what we're going to create from scratch. So why don't I just close it right now and create a new project. Do I want to save it? No, I think I saved it before recording. We're good to go. So let's prep the playing field. I'm going to click on our 8 bits per channel and show you how everything is set up. I'm going to use 16 bits per channel just as a habit. It shouldn't really make any difference in this particular project. And since I hail you from Europe, I'm using the 25 frames per second time base. Now, you should be aware of what's your frames per second, because later on we're going to need it, but I'll bring your attention to that fact. Audio settings don't really matter. We're not going to be using any audio in this project. Alright, let's set our first composition, and I'm going to call it source with underscore. And I'm setting it at 1000 by 200 pixels. Now, you can use pretty much any size you want for this project, as long as both the width and the height can be divided by the same number easily. So since my pixels are going to be 10 by 10, anything with the 0 at the end will do. Additionally, those will also work divided by 20 or 40, etc. So I'll be able to demonstrate you some of the functionality of the presets. 10 seconds, let's make it 20. Just to be on the safe side, and bam, immediately from the get-go I'm going to duplicate it twice, change one of them into underscore result and one of them into magic. And magic is basically where all the magic is going to happen. Source will be where you drop all your original assets, and result, well, guess what? Alright, let's start. So first of all, let's put some stuff in our source composition so that we can see what our effects are going to be doing. I'm just gonna put some text. Let's say QubaHQ likes to scroll the text. Of course, this is really tiny, so let's adjust the properties for this text. Make it quite big. This should work just fine. For a while we're not going to be touching the source composition. Now you may notice in my previous tutorials I always had problems with real estate. That's one of the reasons I'm working with a very thin horizontal project size this time. Next, let's create ourselves some pixel shapes. So for that we need a new composition. Let's call it pixel, and as you can see the values are already typed in because I have to re-record a segment I messed up a little bit. Keep it at 100 by 100. If you make it bigger or smaller, you're gonna have some trouble reworking the math in some of the expressions, so this size is pretty good for what we need. And let's create a new solid inside, apply a ellipse mask to it just by double clicking it, creating a perfect circle. Zoom in a little bit, go to 1 second, split the layer. Now I have to use the command because Ctrl-Shift-D does something weird to my Camtasia. Open some windows, I didn't configure it yet. So on that copy, unroll the mask, delete it, and change it with, let's say, a rectangle. So double click, we have a nice rectangular mask. Let's go to 2 seconds, and just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to show you that you can do really a lot of different weird shapes. So where was it? Split layer, mask, delete the mask, and what the hell, let's put a star in there. I doubt many LED screen designers use that particular shape, but we can. Alright, so this is our pixel, and we're going to come back to its settings pretty soon. Let's go into the magic. Alright, and in the magic we bring and drop down the source as the bottommost layer. We can actually even lock it because we're not going to be doing anything to it. And then we bring in our pixel on top of it. For the pixel, position and anchor point, everything needs to be zeroed. So 0, 0, 0, 0, which places it nicely in the top left corner. And now the math starts. So let's grab our magic composition, drag it into new composition icon, rename the newly created one, not here, here, into LED effect, and then open result and drag that inside. So basically that's a result composition which hosts LED effect, which in turn hosts magic, and magic has all our stuff that we did so far. I'm going to drag the result to the bottom here because I'll be doing some linking between different compositions. And the first thing that we're going to set up, I can actually close LED effect, we don't need it right now. Close the pixel, close the source even. Okay. First thing that we need to decide on is the size of our pixel. So let's go to Effects, Expression Controls, Slider Control, apply it to LED effect, unroll it and rename it into pixel size. And right now on our pixel, this layer, we're going to get the scale property, alt click on the stopwatch and write x equals, link it up to our slider value, semicolon, and then in square brackets x, comma, x, close square brackets. And it effectively makes it disappear, but just because our controller is still at 0, if I bring it right now to 20, our pixel appears. So we have the first of the expressions in place. Basically we can control the size of our pixels, 20. So although I've seen some really broken LED displays with just one flickering pixels on them, I don't think that's what we're going for. So we don't need the result anymore right now. Let's create the matrix of them. And for that we're going to use Reptile, a pretty popular plugin that comes with After Effects. Actually I think it's CC. Yes, CC Reptile. Apply it to the pixel and unroll effects. And you can see that we can right now expand it to the right and expand it down in order to fill the screen with our pixels. But it's quite a bit of manual adjustment each time you change something. So I'm going to write an expression for it that will fill up the screen with the desired amount of dots automatically. So let's zero out our values and see if I remember how to write this expression. We're definitely going to need this line from the previous one, which grabs the size of our new pixel. Alt click on expand right, paste it, and just for it to be a bit more legible, I'm gonna change the X into pixel size. So pixel size equals, and then the link to our effect in the result composition, and then comp size equals this comp dot width, and that's going to grab the value of the width of our composition. And the math goes something like this. First of all, we have to divide the width of our composition by the size of the pixel. Comp size divided by pixel size. And that wouldn't result in much. If I unclick it, it's way too short, of course. So right now I have to multiply it by 100. And 100 basically means one full repetition of our pixel. That's because our pixel is 100 by 100 pixels. God, this is getting complicated. Alright, just trust me on this one. So comp size divided by pixel size multiplied by 100, and then minus 100, so I'm subtracting the one dot that we already have on screen. Okay, if you don't understand it, don't worry, just open the project file in your own time and analyze it. You'll figure it out sooner or later. But right now, as a proof of the thing working, I'm going to grab the layer and just move it a little bit, and you can see it does not produce any more dots than necessary. And if I go to my pixel size slider and change it to, let's say, 10, it creates smaller pixels and again fills the screen up and not an inch more. Okay, back to 20. And we need to do something similar for the expand down. So I'm just going to copy this, alt click on expand down, paste it, and the only thing we need to change in here is in the second line, comp size will be this comp dot length, not width, sorry, dot height. Alright, so our matrix is working beautifully. Let's hide the reptile and just test it once more. What happens as we adjust the pixel size? Everything is working fine. But let's set it back to 20 for now. However, if we scrub through the timeline right now, you will see that something really weird happens, which is the whole thing disappears and then we see some stars. As you can guess, this is happening because we have a bunch of different shapes inside of our pixel. So we need to lock it in time and create a controller for it. So let's, well, we can just copy paste that pixel size, or actually duplicate it. Change the name into pixel shape, and that creates a slider. Let's put it at 0, and for pixel we're going to right click on it, apply time, enable time remapping. We can delete the second keyframe and again apply expression to it, which is basically a link to our pixel shape slider. And maybe actually, to be on the safe side, let's do math floor and put that link inside of the parentheses, so link it in here. So this way it will not try to find any random things. If we change it to 1, we get squares, which we cannot see because they fill the screen perfectly. If we click 2, we get the star. And if you decide to put more shapes in there, you can adjust them by the further numbers. And while we're at messing with the pixels, it's really kind of annoying how right now the squares do not show anything. So let's create that other controller. Let's duplicate the shape. And that's going to be pixel expansion. And we'll set up the spacing controller. So for that, I'll need to open the pixel composition. This is starting to get confusing. Okay, pixel composition goes up. Let's unroll the mask properties for the circular one, and for the expansion, write minus and then link it up to our expansion. Why I'm saying minus is that it would be kind of counterintuitive to have all the sliders go up and then this one go down. Now we can't see anything right now because we're still set at the second shape. There we go. So right now, as we increase the expansion, the size of the pixel gets smaller. I think it's easier to use this way. Let's set it at, let's say, 5. And we can now copy the expression and paste it on the other layer properties. So let's unroll the mask for the square. I'll click on expansion, paste it. You can see we got some nice margin in here. And go to the star, do the same thing. Unroll the properties, mask expansion, paste. Alright, and I believe that's all we will need to do with this particular composition. There's no need for motion blur or anything like that. And let's just again quickly test it. Expansion is working. Pixel shape 1. Yeah, now it's starting to look much better. Alright, I like it with the circles and with expansion at 5 or 4. Fairly close to each other, but with a little bit of spacing. Now let's optimize it a little bit. Let me show you something. If we right now go into source, let's open that composition and do some simple animation. Later on we're going to animate it with expressions, but for now let's just change the position manually. Then we come back here and set the pixel mode into, you can't see it, it's off the screen, but I'm choosing stencil alpha so that, well, it creates a stencil. And we start previewing it notice how slow it's going to render. This is really not the kind of performance you would expect. It takes probably around 1 second for every 2 frames. It's slow for a simple reason. For each frame of the animation, it has to render the reptile effect. And there is a very quick workaround that's going to speed up the render, and you can use it whenever you have any effects that are processor intensive but are always applied the same way for each frame. So what we're going to do is I'm going to bring it back to normal and then pre-compose this layer with itself. So Ctrl-Shift-C, and I can call it pixel matrix. Move all the attributes into new composition, and we don't need to open it. So right now, all those expressions we just wrote sit inside there. And if we right now render, it's getting a bit faster, but it's still fairly slow. Let's switch it to stencil alpha. Right click on it, go to time, enable time remapping, and delete the last keyframe. So basically what we did is we froze this pre-comp at a single frame. So After Effects will render this one frame and then know to use it for the rest of the composition. And to prove to you how much faster it becomes, I'm just going to purge all the undos and RAM previews, hit numeric 0, and you can immediately see that in a matter of seconds we're already previewing 11 seconds of the composition. So this is a little trick worth to remember. And what I like to do personally is right click on that keyframe and also set it to toggle hold keyframe, just as a visual reminder that this layer is frozen in time. Now, next thing we want to do is to pixelate our source, which sits underneath that pixel matrix. It's still perfectly crisp. We want to bring it down to the resolution of our LED. And to do that, we're going to use the mosaic filter. And let's just quickly create a new adjustment layer. A shortcut I never seem to be able to memorize, because there isn't any. And let's call that mosaic. Move it underneath the pixel matrix, and I can actually close pixel matrix for a moment. Apply mosaic to it, and again, expressions. So we can actually again reuse the same expression, just modified it a little bit. So let's go inside the pixel matrix, grab those expressions we have on the reptile. So effects, reptile, I just need the expand right one, close it, go to mosaic, effect, horizontal blocks, paste it in, and basically the amount of horizontal blocks is going to be comp size divided by pixel size without any additional math on it. And vertically it looks correct right now, but that's simply because our pixel size is 20 by 20 and the default value in here is 10, so it actually already put it in the way it's supposed to be, but we need to adjust the true expression so we can modify it later. So alt click, paste that expression, delete that times 100 minus 100, and change the width into height again. So boom. Alright, so right now it's still 10, but this time it is being calculated according to our settings. So if right now we enable the pixel matrix, everything fits perfectly and the edges of the pixels are exactly where the edges of our matrix is. And if we change the pixel size to, let's say, 10, we can see that the whole thing is starting to take shape. Now, Mosaic has this setting in here for sharp colors, which could be used to limit the amount of differently colored pixels, but I'm not really happy with the result it gives. Plus, it's just a toggle, and I would be much more happy getting a bit more control. So let's create one more adjustment layer. layer, new adjustment layer, and call this one posterize. Move it underneath the pixel matrix but above mosaic, and as you can guess, posterize is the name of the effect we're going to apply on it. And if we go to value of 2, we're going to end up with nothing. Of course. Alright, this is exactly the same thing I did when I was first testing this effect, and it took me a moment to figure it out. Posterize doesn't do much right now because our composition is actually transparent, so we need to add a new black solid underneath. So new solid, make it perfectly black, comp size, put it at the bottom, and right now our posterize kicks in. So at level 2 it will be purely black and white. Oh, I'm lying, apparently there's 1 pixel that's slightly different size. At level 3 it will get a little bit more definition, and at level 4 it will start looking pretty much like what I had in the original demo. So why don't we link this up to our controller as well, so that we can have one central point from which we can direct the look of the whole project. So let's duplicate the pixel expansion effect, rename it into posterize, go to our posterize, alt click on it, and link it up to the slider. Okay, so right now we have again central control for everything. Let's just test it. 2, perfect. Alright, I'm setting it at 4 because I like the way it looks there. So everything is starting to look pretty good and take place, or it may seem so, because when we turn on the alpha view on this composition, we will see that suddenly we developed a very bad case of polka dots, and that's because we needed to add that black rectangle underneath. And this is why we piped magic through that LED effect composition, which at that moment wasn't doing anything, is to get rid of that ugly black dots that we had there. So to do that, we're going to go to LED effect, create a new white solid, put it underneath the magic, and use the magic as the luma mat for it. And at this point we got rid of all the blacks, and it pretty much feels like it's running through a screen effect or so. Next, I would like to add that LED matrix underneath that we will be able to show or hide depending on how we want the whole thing to look like. So let's go back to magic, duplicate the pixel matrix, which right now acts as a stencil, so we can collapse all these layers here because we're done with them. Okay, so let's make a copy of it. We can bring that white solid we just created underneath it, change the mode of pixel matrix into normal, and use it as an alpha matte this time. And again, for the white solid, we'll need to link it up via expression with our controller. Let's get some more space. Wow, even with that thin of a composition, I'm running out of space. So again, posterize, duplicate it. Let's just call it background opacity, and let's link up the opacity value of this layer to the slider. Alright, so if we increase it right now, we start getting those dots. Now I think 15 is good enough. One thing that we could do in here is that I don't want this medium grays to gain any white as we increase the opacity of our background, and right now they do. So I'm going to switch the mode from normal into lighten, and that's going to not affect them unless it surpasses their original color. So I can bring it all the way to their color, and only then it starts pushing them more towards white. Perfect. I believe we're done with all the initial setup. What we need to do right now is put on the colorizing and the animation tools. Let's start with the animation tools. Now, what happens if we preview this right now is that we're going to get a pretty nasty flickering. You see the text is kind of sliding through our mosaic, fading in and out. Now, this may be the effect that you desire, and if so, you can just skip the next step. But usually on the LED screens, the text moves 1 pixel at the time and always looks the same, just changes the position. So to do that, we need to make sure that it will be moving guided by our pixel size. So for that, we'll go to the source, get rid of that animation that we have there, maybe bring it back to the beginning, maybe somewhere here, create a new null object. Okay, I know the shortcut for that. Ctrl-Shift-Alt-Y. Yes. Okay, go to the anchor point, no, not anchor point, position, and zero it out, so it sits in our corner, and we can call it the driver, because this is what's going to animate the whole thing. And then we need our pixel size, and let's create the expression for it. Actually, before writing the expression, we should make one more property in here, in our main expression hub, which would be the speed of the animation. So let's make another copy of our slider and rename it into speed. And let's set it at 1 pixel, and that's going to be 1 hour pixel. So actually 10 actual pixels per frame. Alright, let's bring them into our driver. So the first value that we need to get is the pixel size. So pixel size equals, and let's link it up to that slider, semicolon, next line. Why can't I see it? Scrolling the mouse disables the expression. Second, we need speed, and I can't call this value speed because that's a reserved name, so I'll just call it scrolling speed and link it up to our speed slider. Stop it. That's what happens when you have too many comp timelines opened at the same time. And the final value is our time, or our frame, equals time multiplied by 25. And that 25 is an important number. That's basically your frame rate. Remember, in the beginning of the tutorial, I was telling you that you must be aware of what frame rate you're working with. Well, that's where it comes into play. And if you don't know what frame rate you're working with, it's written right here. So 25.00 FPS, time multiplied by 25. And that's going to give us the current frame that we're at. Alright, so x equals our frame multiplied by pixel size multiplied by scrolling speed, semicolon, and then open square bracket minus x comma 0 close square bracket. So what we're doing is the null, okay, I can close it. The null will always stay in the same position vertically and is going to move towards left according to the speed dictated by this expression. So if I go ahead, you can see it going off the screen. Now this works very good for all the left to right languages. If you're planning to use it with Arabic or Hebrew text, or honestly, I don't really know how many different alphabets use right to left, but basically if you need that, you will not put that minus before the x, and that would move the text in the opposite direction. And if you would be using Chinese or Japanese or any other top to bottom, you would use 0, -x to make the whole thing scroll upwards. But I'm guessing for most of you this is the way you're going to be using it. So all we need to do right now is parent our text to the driver, and we can see it nicely animating. If we go frame by frame, you will see that it jumps 10 pixels at the time. And if we go back to our magic, you will see, you can notice it quite well either on the top of the queue. Let's zoom in a little bit. On top of the queue or at the end in here. As we move frame by frame, the whole letter jumps perfectly 1 LED pixel at the time. I think I got an email. Let me pause for a second. Yes, it was an email indeed. Unfortunately, to the sender, I am not in an urgent need of Viagra at the moment. Thank you very much. It went to the spam box. Alright, so let's see what happens if we change pixel size. Let's change it from 10 to 20, and you will see a couple of things happen. First of all, of course, the look of the whole effect changed and the text is no longer readable. Second thing is the whole text moved, and that's because it is driven by the pixel size. So the bigger our pixels, the quicker the text will move. Well, only naturally. Let's bring it back to 10. And if you find it moving too slow, you can change your speed to, let's say, 2. And this way it will jump 2 pixels at the time. Or if you want that sliding effect, you can change it to some arbitrary value, such as 1.3. And right now, the text is going to change as it's moving. You can observe it here on the vertical line of the B. Right now it's very strong, right now it's almost only one line, etc, etc. So you can get that sliding effect back if you want it. Alright, so only one more thing left to do to have the effect complete, and that's the colorization. And for that we're going to go to our LED effect and apply a fill to our white solid. So effect, generate, fill, and we're going to make one last controller for this. Let's just expand it until we see the color and add the color controller to our main hub. So expression controls, color control, as you can hear, it's around 2:30 right now, and I'm starting to get a little bit sleepy, but I think I can carry on through and then cut this and then compress it and then prepare the videos and post it online. Yeah, why the hell not? Alright, so let's change the color into orange so that we can see the difference. Alt click on the color, link it up, and we're done. I can actually bring the result back to our main timeline window, and it's all working. So let me run a quick preview and get right back to you. I'm so used to my compositions taking forever to render that I didn't realize how well optimized this thing is. It took just around 5 seconds to render it, so I didn't really have to pause the video. But here it is, the effect is working, and you can do whatever you want inside of your source. Basically, if we go to project window, you see everything is neatly organized. You open your source, put whatever text, graphics, anything you want really in it, and you're gonna get it as a result converted to your LED with full set of controls. So let's see if it's going to crash this time if I set it to 5 pixels. It's trying. Let's see, maybe it will manage to calculate. Wow, it did, and it looks pretty nice actually. And again, because our pixel matrix is pre-composed, it takes just a moment for it to render. And this is looking pretty good. It kind of reminds me of the computer versions of the pinball machines, how the LED screens usually look on them. So this is the result. Let's actually see what happens if we put some weirder things into our source. I'm just gonna scroll, or maybe turn off that text completely, and put splatter type in it. Why not pimp my other tutorial? So user presets, I hope I installed splatter type. Yes, I did. Let's just put it in at the default value. Maybe move it over here and see what happens to it. Wow, it looks pretty cool. So as you can see, pretty versatile effect. You can do a lot of cool stuff with it. I'm actually really happy with the way it looks. I should have used that in the demo. It's a bit late for now. Okay, let's remove it, bring back the text. And since I think the night is already wasted and I'm not gonna get much sleep, why don't I show you a little bit what I did with that building in the demo. I'm not going to bring the building in because it really took me a while to align the layers to the photograph, but the main concept is really simple. Let's just create a new composition here. Let's set it to, let's say, pal square pixel, and it's really trivial how I did it. Basically, I imported a copy of our result with everything already animated in it, apply the rectangular mask to it, then let's double click it to bring it in, brought the mask to approximately half of my composition, and let's just adjust it so it's properly there. Okay, we can actually adjust this mask to go all the way here where the anchor point is, so we don't need to change it. Made a copy of it, change the mask from add to subtract, change both layers into 3D, linked one to another, rotated it by 90 degrees, or minus 90 in this case. Let's bring a new camera, orbit a little bit around it, and I believe I had a glow effect on top, so new adjustment layer, glow, and by default it looks pretty bad. Actually, it looks very nice if we switch it to 32-bit. Aha! This is when we run out of memory. Okay, let's switch it back to 16-bit. And tweak it a little bit. So, adjustment layer, I believe the glow threshold was at 40% with the intensity at 0.5. Okay, it's taking a while to render right now. It's not the fastest effect, unfortunately. Yeah, it's starting to get that nice overcast, maybe even lower. Intensity 0.3, radius to, let's say, 20. And that's pretty much what was done to it. I mean, not really anything fancy. And if we preview it right now, you'll see that the text will slowly creep towards the edge, and as it reaches it, it will bend around and start following the second wall. Come on, yep, there we go. So I mean, it's totally up to you how you use this effect. As you can see, it's pretty versatile and you can do quite a bit with it. And just to demonstrate some of the stuff we can do right now is, let's change the size back to 10 so it calculates a little bit faster. Bring it back so we can see it. And remember our pixel shape, so let's change it to square pixels. Maybe increase the expansion to 10 and Where do we have it? Background opacity. Let's say 30. Well, 30 is way too much. Color to blue, and this starts looking like some sort of geeky watch LED display, or rather LCD display. We could probably apply glow on top in here, but let's not slow it down. Or if we totally want something fancy, remember our other shape was a star. And of course right now the expansion is totally killing it, so let's bring it to 0. And it's cheesy, but you know, if you want to do stuff like that, you're free to. Just remember, since our pixel shape is frozen in time, you cannot animate them. Well, you can, but you would need to rewrite parts of the expression. So anyway, thanks for watching this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will find some new and interesting applications for this preset. As you can see, it's quite versatile and you can do a lot with it. We didn't even begin to scratch the surface of the stuff you can do with it. My apologies for the narration of this tutorial being a bit slower than usual. I guess recording at night time isn't really my forte, but I think we got through. For QubaHQ, I'm Kuba Michalski, and I'll see you next time.